Hello my friends and welcome back to another video where today we have some big breaking news about the Amazon Lord of the Rings TV series and actually being exclusively reported by the One Ring there where they have revealed their official synopsis for the Amazon Lord of the Rings TV series. And before we go on, they say they have validated it, and of course to probably back them up, I'm showing you on screen right now, Patrick McKay, one of the showrunners for the Amazon show, actually retweeting their original tweet about the message, which of course hopefully confirms that this synopsis is legit and real. And here is the original statement released by the One Ring there, and we're actually going to be in this video breaking it down. We're not going to be actually using this. We're going to be breaking down the lines and actually analysing what it actually has to say and theorising about what this means for the show as well. But overall, by looking at it from face value, it doesn't really reveal anything too new or something that we haven't heard of before, but does validate and confirm things that we in the channel have been speculating about for the last probably 6 to 8 months, and what the Tolkien fan base in general have been speculating about for the last few years or so. So it doesn't really reveal anything new, but there are some little things which are interesting, which we'll talk about later, but it does confirm and validate some of our speculations for a while as well. And of course, I'm not sure if I said this earlier, please check out theonering.net to stay up to date with the latest news, and of course subscribe to them as well. But let's actually get into it, and from the start you can see it's probably a traditional starter to probably a synopsis where it says Amazon Studios' forthcoming series brings to screens for the very first time the heroic legends of the fabled Second Age of Middle-earth's history. And the epic drama, as we already know, is set thousands of years before the events of J.R. Tolkien's Hobbit and Lord of the Rings. So not really much take there, except from the fact that it's 1,000 years before the Lord of the Rings and Hobbit, which we already knew. But moving on, it says, quote, and will take viewers back to an era in which great powers were forged, maybe referring to the forging of the rings. Kingdoms rose to glory and fell to ruin, of course, but they'll probably be talking about maybe referring to Numenor there, but of course other ways they can refer it to. Unlikely heroes were tested, hope hung by the finest of threads, and the greatest villain that ever flowed from Tolkien's pen. So that is quite an interesting quote and has been theorized a lot so far. But I just believe it's probably maybe a marketing technique, or I don't really think they are referring to Melkor or Morgoth, but probably most likely Sauron. But they're over dramatizing it just to make it seem like, oh, he's the ultimate villain. So of course I may be wrong, but I really highly doubt that. And with the last bit, it says that Sauron threatened to cover all the world in darkness, of which indeed he did. Now moving on to the more interesting part, it says, quote, beginning in a time of relative peace. So from that, we can probably tell that the show might or probably will be starting around the year 1200 of the Second Age, because that's round about when things actually started to begin in the Second Age. Things started to heat up where, etc., Sauron tried to deceive the elves. So I believe that the show, what this is referencing to, is that the show will probably start and begin, so season 1 will probably begin around the year or even before the year 1200 of the Second Age, as I believe that Sauron actually returned to Middle-earth in the Second Age during the year 500 of the Second Age, but that's when I think he began to build Barad-dûr. But now I believe by 1200 and by around the year 1000 to 1200 of the Second Age is a good time for the show to start, and from this we can already tell that. But moving on to the next line where it says, quote, the series follows an ensemble cast of characters, both familiar and new. Okay, there's a lot to unpack here, and the first thing I want to start off with is that I believe them saying an ensemble cast of characters probably takes away or removes any of the theories of it being an anthology series, because that probably seems like it's going to be a linear story where we have lots of like, I don't want to make comparisons to Game of Thrones, as of course a lot of people don't like that, but I think the one thing that Amazon could actually learn from Game of Thrones is have lots of different plot lines in different places and continue them throughout the show. And it seems like that's what Amazon are trying to go for here with having a ensemble cast, where we probably see we have Lyndon will have a storyline of Elrond and Gil-galad, etc., maybe Círdan. Then in Region we'll have the dwarves, maybe Na'vi. We'll have Galadriel as well, and then we have a story, and then we have a Numenorian storyline as well. So I think that's what that line is actually hinting at. Then of course familiar and new, and of course we know that the second age is not a lot to work on if you're referencing directly from Tolkien's works and writing. So we probably knew that this would be the case, and that we of course have familiar characters, but there'll also be new made up characters by Amazon as well. And as I said in a video a while back, I wouldn't mind new characters if they fit, if it feels like a Tolkien character. If it feels like a Tolkien character, then it made sense, because as much as we know Tariel in The Hobbit was butchered, for me, in many ways, Tariel did seem like a pretty Tolkien character, but the way she was written was awful. But that's a discussion for another day. But moving on to the last line, it actually is referring to something that I mentioned earlier on in the video, but let's firstly read the line. It says, quote, "As they confront the long-feared re-emergence of evil to Middle-earth." So earlier in the video, I mentioned that I believe Sauron returned to the Second Age, or not to the Second Age, returned to Middle-earth around the year 500 of the Second Age. So maybe they're referring to that, and that if the show is starting around the year 1200 of the Second Age, that's the fear's been building up in Middle-earth for some time, and that is where we in fact start the story. And the fact that it says the long feared, instead of saying the feared return, it's been a long fear, so it's been brewing up for some time, which means there must be about 500 to 800 or 1,000 years in between his return for that to happen, because we know in Tolkien's works there's much more length. It doesn't mean, it's not like in a normal world where 60 years is long, as for example we're looking at this from the view of the elves as well. Finally, moving on to the last line, I think the lines that most fans, it seems like so far from the reaction, are actually excited and delighted about, where it says, quote, "From the darkest depths of the misty mountains to the majestic forests of the elf capital of Linden." So from there, that's great, because we are probably seeing the involvement of dwarves and seeing their interactions probably in Erugion, and hopefully see that with Lorien, etc. That'll be interesting, that we are finally hopefully seeing dwarves in a more different light as well. And then to the elf capital of Linden, and I know people have saying were there forests in Linden or not. I believe at the time of the Second Age, it was before, I think, the elves and Sauron, there were lots of forests around Middle-earth, especially in the Erugion and Eriador region, before they got burned down during the wars, and which was a tactical play by Sauron. But as I digress, as you continue, quote, "To the breathtaking island kingdom of Numenor." And of course, this was the big thing for Amazon, it seems like so far, that we are seeing Numenor. Of course, as Gray has mentioned there, a lot of the PR, from the limited PR so far, has been revolved around the emergence and incorporation of Numenor, which is of course great. And moving on, quote, "to the furthest reaches of the map." And this has got lots of people excited so far. So what does this mean? That it seems like we'll be going far south and probably far west as well, and we'll probably be seeing possibly the Haradrim, and maybe even this probably confirms the Blue Wizards as well. If you guys don't know, I'm doing currently a series. It's called Unexpected Parts with my friend Layman, and one of the episodes were on the Blue Wizards, and I think this probably confirms that if we are going south or west, we probably will be seeing the Blue Wizards, and of course the Haradrim. You might be seeing Umbar. As we also know, if the show did start around the year 1200, the Second Age, we know at this time Numenor are also building and stating ports around Middle-earth and down south near Umbar and Harad as well. So maybe we'll be seeing some ports down there, but we'll also be seeing the people down there for the first time, seeing the other side of Middle-earth, the things we didn't see in Jackson's film adaptation. So it's great that we're hopefully going to be seeing that, and that's a really interesting line. And then, of course, it ends with the typical synopsis fantasy thing, where these kingdoms and characters will be making great legacies, which is probably legacies and prophecies are probably the two most used words in fantasy films and genres right now. But of course, we know that fantasy as a whole probably, I know there's a debate around this, but originally came from Tolkien, but his legacies live on long after they are gone. So just to summarize and some overall thoughts, this is a really interesting exclusive, and again thanks to the Wondering Net for providing this. And of course, as I said at the start of the video, it doesn't really say anything new or like give any new information to us in a sense that is big or revealing, but more confirmed stuff and speculation that I've been speculating and talking about on this channel for months now, and the Tolkien fandom in general for years now. So it's great that we finally have this confirmation and validity. And the things that I want to touch upon that I think we have learned from this is that the time setting of when the show is going to start, so the first two episodes and the pilot, which will be around the year 1200 of the second age, maybe a bit before, and or maybe they could go right into the year of 1500, but I quite doubt that they will go right into the Forging of the Rings, because they actually did say in a time of relative peace, which is an interesting quote. And another interesting quote I think fans are happy about was them referencing, of course, Linden, which probably will have a big part to play, and of course going to the I don't remember the quote off the top of my head, but the I believe the places west and south of Middle Earth, places we have unvisited on film or TV before in Middle Earth, which is of course interesting and great. And other interesting things that we have learned that I believe is one of the more bigger things is that people have been speculating for a while now that the show is too large, the second age too large. They'll probably do an anthology series where season 1's this, season 2 is that, season 3 is this, 500 years in between. But from the ensemble cast character reference that they used, I think that's the exact quote from the synopsis. It probably means that we'll probably be seeing a more linear story with loads of storylines intertwining and coming, and probably they're going to build their storylines for a bit and then in the end come back together as in the end probably for big events such as the Battle of the Gothlo, etc., or the downfall of Numenor. But actually no, that would be in Numenor, Middle Earth difference, but maybe the Battle of the Last Lines as well, who knows. But so it being a linear story is really interesting, so we'll probably be set in a specific time period, it seems like, as of right now. Of course this could change, or it might not be correct, but from what I can infer from that, it seems like the case. Finally, to wrap up with some more positive news, Nazanin Boniadi earlier today stated, "Thanks to our incredible crew for carrying us so graciously through a grueling night shoot. Every person, every department." So firstly, this confirms a few things that, as speculated and reported earlier and around last year, that shooting for the Amazon Lord of the Rings show has finally begun again and started up after that short hiatus in January as speculated, which is good, which knows that hopefully we'll have a few periods of 5 to 6 months of just straight filming. And also it's interesting they are doing night shoots, as you know, generally night shoots are the more bigger, more grander scenes. And if you guys probably remember, cast your minds back 20 years ago, or how many years ago, to Helm's Deep and those night scenes. And I know that currently the Amazon show are fully filming at Camus or Kamui, I'm sorry for the pronunciation, I still don't know how to say that place, Camus Film Studios in New Zealand, and they are currently filming there. And the interesting thing about Camus Film Studios is that there are lots of large water tanks, and we know that Amazon have been using that as well. And to wrap up with this nice picture of the cast together for, I believe, Mr. Cox's birthday, who I believe is the husband of Sophia Numvati or partner. And just want to say thank you guys for watching. I really appreciate it. We are starting to see a bit of news coming up now. Hopefully in the future we'll see some more things directly from Amazon and their Lord of the Rings and Prime accounts as well. Please, in the comments below, let me know what you think about this news and about the synopsis. And until the next video, my friends, goodbye.